Hi, I'm Martin Bailey. Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. When I was a boy, I received a telescope for Christmas and it was amazing. I spent night after night sitting out in the cold with my telescope, gazing at the stars. I don't recall the size of the mirror or the focal length, but it was good enough that I could see detail in the moon that had the hairs on the back of my head standing up. And on some really clear nights, I could just about make out a little green haze where the Orion Nebula was. I don't know what happened to that telescope. Maybe it turned into a Sunday lunch one week like my sister's rabbits did when we were short of money. The memory of those magical sessions never left me though. Recently, now 45 years older, I realized that I was living in a part of Japan that at a push would enable me to take photographs of the night sky. So I took the plunge and bought a good but relatively inexpensive Skywatcher Quattro 250p Newtonian telescope and their EQ6R Pro, an equatorial mount. The learning curve has been steep as I set everything up to be able to control my telescope from a computer and track celestial bodies with some degree of accuracy. It doesn't help that it's summer here in Japan, so clear skies are not common, but on the few occasions where I've been able to set it up, I've actually learned quite a lot, what works, what doesn't, although there's still so much more learning ahead. Before I'd figured out how to track the moon accurately, we had a total lunar eclipse on September the 8th, 2025. And the sky looked to be clear, so I headed up a nearby mountain and I've learned of a parking space there that was going to have pretty dark skies and relatively low tree line on the side where the moon would set. It wasn't a complete success, so my tracking still veered off over time, but running my polar alignment again made things much better. So I'm confident that my problem now lies in being patient enough to really nail the polar alignment before attempting to track the moon for any length of time. Because my tracking wasn't great, I had to manually crop and align 2,000 images that I'd shot to make a time lapse. And because the shape of the moon changed as the eclipse progressed, the auto alignment in DaVinci Resolve Studio didn't work as well as I'd hoped. Still, if we're lucky enough to get clear skies next March, we have another chance coming. So I'll keep you posted if I improve on this. But I have embedded a 2-minute time lapse in the blog post that this is accompanying. So that's at mbp.ac/848. And I have also embedded a video there showing how I set up the telescope. And again, it's pretty rough. I just did it on the spur of the moment. And so, if you're interested, take a look at that as well. And the thing about the time lapse is you'll see in the middle there, around the center point, 1 minute or so in, that you can actually start to see the stars behind the moon when the eclipse reaches totality. Normally there's too much light. The sun hits the moon and it makes the stars just pretty much disappear. There's too much contrast. But when we're in totality, the moon is so dark that when you expose for the moon, you can see the stars. So I was really happy with the results of processing a single frame from the time lapse to show the stars that we can see behind the moon. Okay, so we're going to jump in and I'm going to show you how I processed this single frame from my Lunar Eclipse time lapse. I'm going to show you how I process this in PixInsight, which is an astronomy based image processing software, and also Photoshop, because I know more of you have access to Photoshop. So as you can see, the moon once the sun is not illuminating it, making it very bright, the contrast drops and we can see stars behind it. And I just thought that was so fascinating. But when I was photographing this, or when I was looking at this through the images coming in from my telescope, in a dark car, I saw more stars than I see in the image. So I thought there's probably more that we can bring out here. And what I want to do is, so first of all, I'm going to let's open this in Finder so that I can drag it into PixInsight. Now, PixInsight, I'm just learning it. I've been doing tutorials and trying to figure out stuff. It makes Photoshop look like solitaire, but I really haven't learned a lot of the processes yet. What I do know is that to make this the right orientation, I have 90 degrees already set in here, and it's set to go to clockwise. So if we apply that, we've got the image in the orientation that I was shooting it. You'll see immediately that the moon is not, and doesn't look anything like it did in the field and or in the image that we've just seen. PixInsight works very differently on images, bringing out basically image data from the darkest shadows, and so regular photos look a little bit strange. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's go in, and initially I want to show you this auto stretch feature. You'll see here that immediately almost destroys the moon, but it brings out a lot of detail in the stars. But also it's really doing it. If I turn off this preview, it pretty much goes back to where it was. Now you can, if we open, what will it be? I don't do this enough to, let's turn on the preview here. I think if I drag this to here, there you go. So turn that preview back off again, and that now makes it look like this without having to rely on the stretched preview. And I'm going to apply that to the image, and then I'm going to run this. It's a paid add-on. Oops, I've got to get rid of that. It's a paid add-on that will take the photo of the moon and the background with the stars and break them into two. It's a star exterminator. If you don't turn this on, you don't end up with a star image, but at the moment we want the star image. Conversely, we don't need the moon because in this state, because it looks pretty bad. But there you'll see we have now more stars automatically because we ran that stretch process. In here, I'm going to go back and undo Star Terminator and undo the histogram transform, and that gets us almost back to the moon. Now I'm going to run this again to get rid of the background, but we still need to enhance this moon if we're going to use it as it is. Let's just let that run for a moment. So once this is done, I'm going to put it aside for a moment and we'll come back to that. Here we now have an image with already more stars, but I want to just try to bring out a little bit more. I keep forgetting to turn on the preview. What you'll see, look, as I do this, look at all of these squares and all this stuff that starts to come out in the background. I can get rid of that by bringing the shadows up a little bit more, but I don't want to bring out the stars at the cost of using, or get it introducing that blue background. Let's just turn off the, there's definitely more stars there by using this histogram transformation. I just want to make sure that we don't bring in too much of that blue. So just check once more. I see the blue patches there. I want to make sure, or try as much as possible to avoid doing that. Think that's going to be okay. So we'll apply that and then get rid of that. So that's one stage done. We've already got more beautiful stars in the background there. I'm just going to also use the curves transformation, and initially let's try the lightness. I want to pull down the shadows again. I want to try to avoid, I keep doing this. So make sure that we have the preview view. So try to pull it, or sort of anchor the darks here, and then we'll try bringing out the stars a little bit more again with this. And I'm going to use the saturation as well and just anchor this dark area and see if we can bring out a little bit of color in the stars, because there's lots of colors in stars if you don't overexpose it. And I'm going to try one more with the RGB curve, and you'll see that brings out a fair amount more stars again. So if I turn off the preview, and then we'll see we've got another level of stars coming through here. So I'm going to apply that, and from there this is the preview. So let's take this. What we can do is we can reapply the moon here, but before we do, we obviously want, actually I'm going to name this. I'm going to change the identifier to just stars, and I'm going to save a TIFF version of this on the desktop just to make sure that we have something. Probably won't need it, but a number of times I've found myself having to back out of changes, and it's nice to have a TIFF with a working sort of stage. So now the moon, we can try, let's just see what, I think this is going to mess it up again. So I'm going to turn that back off. I don't think that's worth using that. The histogram should, let's try a histogram. Let's see if we can bring out, again, turn on the preview. So you'll see that's bringing out a lot more in the moon. I don't want to go too crazy here because I don't want to brighten up this lighter side where we were getting more light from the Earth sort of hitting that. I don't think, maybe it's okay to use move the white in a little bit here. So if we turn off the preview, you'll see that's very different. I think I will apply that and then come out of there, and then I want to go back into the curves transformation, and once again I want to try the saturation, because we still need to get, again, hit the preview button, we still need to get some of this the beautiful color back that we lost in PixInsight. Maybe pull these shadows down a little bit, and maybe also try the RGB curve here. I don't want to go too much on that. Like I say, I don't want to enhance this white edge too much. And the lightness, just anchor the shadows. And then just give it a little bit of a pop. I don't really think we need much there. So that should be enough. That moon looks very much like the one that was floating up in the sky when I was photographing it. Turn off the preview. Actually, you know what? The preview actually looks pretty good. I'm going to remove the changes that we did. Just go back into the saturation once more. And I think, without going too far, maybe just pop a little bit more of that back in. So that gives us a moon shot. So that's the preview actually. So I'm going to change the identifier for this to moon. And what we can do now with just those two separate images, I can, actually I'm going to just quickly save a TIFF of the moon as well. Oops, wrong place. I wanted it on the desktop. And again, that's just insurance. The next thing I can do is I have saved this pixel math process here. And if I change this to moon, it will use these identifiers to stick these two images back together. And there you have a reprocessed version with lots of stars in the background. Again, we can quickly save that onto the desktop. Let's call it moon and stars. And so that's that. I don't think we're going to need those TIFFs, but that's one way of doing this in PixInsight. And the other way that we can do this is to use, where's my Photoshop icon gone? The other way we can do this is to open the image. Let's just open it. And again, we need to rotate it. Image rotation 90 degrees clockwise. So I'm going to remove the lock there so that we can use this layer. And I want to select just the moon. And you can do this in various ways. We could, because the background is all pretty much dark, we could just select it. But then we'd have to go through and deselect the stars. So as we know that the moon is pretty much a big round globe sitting up in the sky, I'm going to drop a guideline and just off the edge of the moon here, and then use the circular selection tool to go in. If I line it up with the top, with that corner, we can go in and just select marginally wider than the moon. I'm being careful not to mess with that star that I selected this image because it has that star right next to the moon. So once we have that, I'm going to save the selection so that we can get it back later. And what I'm going to do now is do a Command C and then create a new layer and just drop the moon onto that layer. And then back in here, having clicked around, we've lost our selection. So we'll go back and reload that selection. And from there, I would actually like to remove the moon. So if we turn that off, you'll see that we've got that empty space where the moon was now. I'm going to just select a bit of part of the sky here where we have no stars, and then fill where the moon was. And then I think we'll find we have a little bit of an aura sort of thing coming around here. We can probably leave that, but if we do, it will almost certainly flare up as we do the next thing. So I'm just going to remove these guides so that they don't distract us. And then I think I'm going to use the heel brush. Let's just open it up just a little bit. I'm going to use the heel brush to just try to clear up that line just a little bit. I don't want to mess with that star or this star. Okay, it's not much difference. I still see a bit of an aura there. Maybe try a wider brush and just clean it up a little bit more. Okay, so then we can use, let's go to levels, and if we take the midpoint here, if we drag that down, you'll see that we start to bring out more stars, but we also bring out a little bit of blue in the background. So if we take the blacks and move the black slider up very slightly, it will remove that. So we end up with, if I show you this in a preview, we end up with more stars and the black background remains. So that's one part of it. I also want to just do something with curves as well. So if we again anchor the dark area here, and then you see as I increase that, we bring out some of the fainter stars that really are not obvious at all. And again, if we turn off that preview, you'll see how many more we see up there. And you can go as far as you want with this, but then if we drop the moon back in, you'll see that it looks very similar. Let's just open that TIFF from the, so that's our other version. You see more stars as it sort of reses in. So we've got a sky full of stars up there. Not much different. So if I wanted to, I could probably go through and continue to process this to the point where we're seeing a similar amount of stars in Photoshop. But I think they both look a lot better than when we started without, just with the smattering of stars. It's much nicer to see more of them like that. And as I said, this is more like what I saw coming in when I was sitting in a dark car and looking at the images coming in from my telescope. I was like, wow, look at all of those stars. So I hope you found that interesting and or useful. If you have shots of the moon yourself, even with a camera, if you've got some and you were exposing so that you had a nice red moon, then you might find that you have more stars in the background than you initially thought. So maybe go in and process it and see if you can bring a few more out. I think it looks beautiful the way it is, and the moon is just like floating up there. There's always something so amazing about our companion that I don't know, I just find fascinating and amazing to see. So thanks for watching that. I hope you found it useful. and we'll jump back to to finish in the main video now. If you are interested in seeing what I'm up to, please note that the videos are coming first now, and I will put those on my YouTube channel. So if you want to get this content without waiting for these roundup posts on the blog, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is at mbp.ac/YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully before too long, as I continue on my journey. Take care and stay safe as you continue on yours. Bye-bye.